Hello and welcome back to my writing vlog series about Project Katrina. In this episode I will talk to you about the Project Katrina not in detail but in overall terms and what steps in the story that I go through in these 3 chapters that I will read and comment on. Those are chapters 17, 18 and 19. That means there's only one writing vlog left in this part of the writing vlog series about this project. And then in the following videos I will do something else. I haven't decided what I'm going to do next, but for the time being I'm working on rereading the Project Katrina novel. Let's go into the first chapter. Not chapter 1, but chapter 17. I'll be back in a bit. I have read chapter 17 now, and a lot of things happened in this chapter. Maybe it's not a lot when or if compared to an action movie, for example, but there's some introspection in this, and we also get to hear the main character's inner thoughts. I have formatted her inner thoughts with italics, so it's clear that that's something she's thinking instead of just her telling the story in another way. I use a third person narrator, but a close third that follows her, and we can go inside her mind and read her thoughts as well. And in some places I kind of zoom out and then get perspective from other characters as well. At the end of this chapter she is sleeping, but I end the chapter with stating that the dog is watching over her as she sleeps, and that's something the main character wouldn't know. She can't tell that part of the story when she's sleeping, so I think I will just keep that. I don't know. This chapter is, like I said, it has a lot of things going on. The chapter begins with her, the main character, sitting around a dinner table with mom and dad and 2 sisters, and they talk about things, and they have a guest over, and the atmosphere is a bit strange because this friend of hers is flirting with her mom, and the dad isn't that fond of that. Who can blame him? But he thinks it's kind of weird. And the main character goes for a walk, and things happen on that walk as well. And she meets someone and talks to him, and she gets a warning of some kind that I won't go into detail with, but she gets exhausted. She was peppy and just, yes, I can do this, I'm just going to change a few things in my life and then things will be great. But then after that talk with this character, she's, oh no, I'm exhausted, I don't want to do anything. And then she goes back home and goes to sleep. And maybe it's cliche, I've heard somewhere that you shouldn't start a story or a chapter with someone waking up and end the chapter with someone going to bed, but to me it's pretty natural. You can end on a cliffhanger, or you can end on other plot points, or something that makes the reader question things and, oh, what will happen now? But it's a natural conclusion to this chapter, which was a direct continuation of the chapter before. Sometimes chapters are closely connected, and other times there's a time skip from one chapter to another. It's pretty logical to just state things have changed, or this number of days has passed by, and then we're here now, and then the story can progress quicker than if you have to describe every little detail. So I think this chapter it shows some daily life things, but it also shows something out of the ordinary, and I like that combination. So the chapter ends on a positive note that yes, things are going to be okay and she's having a good time, and then it ends with her, oh no, I'm just going to bed. So I like that there's this switch between the highs and lows, like I have talked about in an earlier writing vlog. So I have made summaries for this chapter and a few notes. One of my notes is that I still do some head hopping. It's not as much a head hopping as going into someone's thoughts and then going into someone else's thoughts. It's like I said earlier, it's a close third narrative, but sometimes I zoom out and then describe something else that the main character cannot know about otherwise. And I think that you need some of these, maybe not everything, not every instance where I do this aren't necessarily needed in the story, but some of them are, I think. And the way that this chapter ends might not be necessary to state that the dog is watching over her as she sleeps. It's not the exact way that I phrased it, but maybe it's not necessary to mention the dog, but I like dogs. I grew up with a dog, and so having a pet friend is natural to me. And I don't have any pets at the moment, but I have had a hamster when I was a teen, and then I got a bunny, and it actually lived long enough to be moved here where I live now. It passed away several years ago, but it has been with me everywhere that I have been. I have lived in 3 different places, and I had the bunny with me all 3 places, so I think that's nice. It's buried in the backyard, the bunny. And then I grew up with a dog. It was the family dog, and so I like dogs. And my boyfriend is more of a cat person. I like cats as well, but I think you either mostly like cats or you mostly like dogs. I like dogs, but they can be a handful, and you can't really go anywhere if you have a dog. You have to bring the dog with you. But if you have a cat, you can leave out some food and some water, and you can be away from the cat for a day or 2 or maybe 3. But you can't leave a dog alone. If you put out food for the dog, then it will eat everything and it might die because of getting too much food at once. So I think having a cat appeals to more people because it's a bit easier to handle than having a dog. And you have to walk a dog, or you have to have a garden that you can let the dog run out into and burn some energy. But cats, they just go out and do whatever they want and then come back. So that's easier. But that was a side note. I figured that it would be nice for you to know that I'm a dog person. I'm not that much into dogs as an adult as I was when I was younger, but things change, people change, and I would still like to have a dog, but I don't want to be bound by it. I don't want to have to find someone who can babysit the dog if I go on vacation or have the opportunity to take the dog with me. I don't want that. And my boyfriend is more of a cat person, so I don't think I could convince him to get a dog, even if I really wanted one. So if we get a pet, it will be a cat, I think. But I can live without pets. So I have done that so far, so it's all good. Yes, but on to the next chapter. I have read chapter 18 now, and this chapter is there's a time skip, so we get something further along in the story and still from her perspective, and it's still the same kind of situation overall, but I had hinted at something that was going to happen, and then I skipped that and just write about what happened afterward. And then she talks about her mom, about what happened at school, and I'm a bit sad because I chose to skip that part. It was a missed opportunity, I think, to to make the reader laugh and to try and show more of this main character's new life and what she's going through. It's I won't say sad. It's not sad per se. It's just a bummer that I didn't write that part of the story and just skipped ahead, and then and then that happened, and then we focus on something else. The story could be longer because I skip certain things and then just make exposition and then continue the story from there. But maybe this is an instance where I have chosen to focus on the wrong thing, or maybe just skip something that could easily have been in the story. I might add a chapter, or at least a section to a chapter later when I do the edits. It's a missed opportunity, like I said. It could be a lot of funny moments, but it could also be that we get to see this main character in a different light and get to know a few more characters that have only been mentioned briefly, and so we don't really get this communication between her and the other characters. She hasn't really gone out of her comfort zone much, as unless she's pushed into a new situation, she avoids doing certain things, and that's and that's a bit unfortunate, because I want to show more of her world and show the reader more of what her new life is like, instead of just skipping some parts and then focusing on other parts of the story. But in general, I think this chapter was good. Things happen and we get more intrigue, and there are a few new questions raised, and we also get answers to certain questions, and I hope it all helps to. Everything helps to move the story along and make the reader curious about what's going to happen next. I'm not sure what this plot point would be. I've said earlier that I've given up on trying to match the 27 chapter method and its plot points with the plot points in the story, but I think I won't say that it was a plot twist that happened in this chapter, but there was a revelation. Something pretty important was revealed to the reader and the main character, and so there's new information that the main character has to just live with. She gets information that she can't really do much about, and so it's out of her hands. The only thing she can do is wait and just hope for the best, and until she knows something else that might change her situation again, she just has to do her best and live her life the best way possible. And that can sometimes be hard. There might be a difference between what you want to do and what you should do. So want and need aren't exactly always unified. I think it comes back to the desire, fear, and misbelief. She has something she wants, but once she wants, she can't have, at least not right now, and so she has to deal with with parts of her fear and then try to make the best of that. I'm still not quite sure what her misbelief is, but I hope that's not as important as having the desire that drives her and the fear that makes her avoid certain things and certain people. But here's one more chapter to go, and then when I read that chapter, I'll get back to you again. See you in a bit. I have now read chapter 19. This chapter is pretty fast paced, and I don't think it's the climax per se that happens in this chapter. Something happens and it's quite important, but it doesn't happen to the main character, not directly. She's affected by this because it happens to someone close to her, someone she cares about. There's a fast pacing, and I think it suits the story, and I think it's natural to have a fast pacing when a lot of things happen, or otherwise it would take pretty long to get through. And this chapter is pretty long in terms of number of characters, so a lot of things happen, but I also take the time to describe the important things. I have a few paragraphs that are attached to the end of the chapter, but I've made a note stating that I should either introduce that part of the chapter a bit more fluently or make a chapter break. But if I make a chapter break, it will be a bit odd, because then there are only a few lines and then the chapter ends. So I think I will add a bit of exposition or something to tell the reader that they are changing location, instead of just, okay, in 1 minute they're sitting around the dinner table having some nice food and talking, and then the next they're going to bed. So I think it will be necessary to add a bit of exposition, but exposition is a good thing. It's a nice way of using telling instead of showing. I don't need to show everything. I have come across 2 things so far that could be expanded into a chapter, instead of just starting a chapter with exposition of what happened between the previous chapter and this chapter. So this chapter has some exposition at the beginning as well, if I remember correctly, and I could have expanded on that and made a chapter about that. So I also think, I can't remember the ending word for word at all, but if I remember correctly, I have the climax, the real climax, and the resolution in the same chapter, just like I had the intro and the inciting incident in chapter 1. So those are 2 extra chapters, and then we would be at 24 chapters. And if I add something that I have skipped and just made exposition about, then I would have been at 26 chapters instead, or maybe more. I have had some other instances where I tell something instead of showing it, but I have to look more closely at that and determine whether it's important to show it, or whether it's fine that it's just told to the reader. So this chapter was pretty fine. I don't think I need to change much in this, because it flows pretty well and things happen, and the only thing I need to do is to make a transition into the last part of the chapter. But other than that, I think it's great as it is. So I only need to read 3 more chapters, and that will be in the next writing vlog. So I hope you will watch that one, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Until next time, take care. Thank you for watching.